Have you ever truly stopped to realize that some of the most dangerous people walking among us are not those who shout the loudest or act the most violently, but rather those who have finally reached a place in their lives where they no longer seek permission, or no longer wait for approval, and no longer feel the need to explain themselves to anyone? They don't raise their hand to speak, they don't soften their voice to make others comfortable, and they certainly don't waste time justifying their choices. They simply walk away fully aware that leaving is not weakness, but the ultimate declaration of freedom. Not because they've become arrogant or cold, but because after years of being obedient, pleasing, and pretending, they've come to understand that freedom, real freedom, demands sacrifice. And while it's costly, the price of staying enslaved to expectations, systems, and illusions is far more devastating, because it quietly eats away at your soul. A gender and an identity all before you had a chance to choose who you truly were, and long before you could understand what those labels even meant, and follow the path laid out for you, never questioning why or by whom it was built. From the moment you were born, before you formed a single memory or spoke your first word, the world began handing you labels, categories, and definitions, assigning you a name, a nationality, where exhaustion is celebrated as ambition, and where rest is treated as a luxury instead of a basic human need, something to be justified, scheduled, and often denied. All the doors pre-approved, and every so-called exit came with a toll that often cost your time, energy, integrity, and identity. You were given instructions disguised as virtues. Sit still, be good, study hard, respect authority. And you, like many of us, grew up believing that adulthood would be your gateway to freedom, but the cruel irony is that growing up didn't lead to liberation. It only led to more complex forms of confinement, where job titles replaced toys, deadlines replaced bedtimes, and instead of sliding down playgrounds, you climbed corporate ladders that led nowhere meaningful. They convinced you that you had choices, gave you polished options, and told you to dream big, but forgot to mention that all the roads were already paved. With a job title, as if your value could be summed up in a line on your resume, as if your identity existed only to be productive, impressive, or profitable. No, this wasn't a flaw or an oversight in the system, meticulously designed not for your joy, fulfillment, or well-being, but for your utility, your productivity, and your compliance. Just take a look around and you'll see that we live in a society where people fear Mondays more than death when you're not producing. That rest must be earned, and that stillness is something to be ashamed of, when in truth, it's where your power lives. You are not your job. Why 5 days a week? You're not a machine built to meet quotas. Every rule, every expectation was created by people, and anything created by people can be uncreated, reimagined, or dismantled entirely. When you're not pretending, we've normalized the absurd. Working jobs we hate to buy things we dainty, need to impress people we dainty even like all because we were taught that what success looks like. Use every single vacation day without guilt. But none of this is accidental, it's all by design. There's no need for physical chains if people believe the cage keeps them safe. There's no need for walls if fear does the job. Slowly over time, as you adapted to survive, you forgot the truth of who you are. Stop thanking people for crumbs when you were meant to feast. Why is time off a privilege and not a birthright? Because what they fear most isn't a riot, it's a person who wakes up. They taught you to answer the question, who are you? But what happens when you're not performing? You are not your output. You are a living, breathing human being who has been conditioned to believe that your existence must be justified at all times. But here's what they never want you to ask, because once you do, the whole illusion starts to break. Why do we work exactly 8 hours a day? Why is healthcare tied to employment? Why is survival something that depends on someone else giving you a job? Maybe it's working fewer hours and living more life. What would your version of success look like? We were trained not just to obey, but to not even question, trained to believe that this is simply how the world works. That there are no other options, and that change is impossible because this system has always existed. But here is the truth most people are too afraid to say aloud. Every system you see around you, every policy, because that's how it is not an answer, it's a deflection, a way to keep you small. You stop glorifying the grind. You choose peace over performance, depth over noise, meaning over marketing. You don't have to burn everything down to start reclaiming your life. You can begin with simple acts of resistance. Arrive exactly on time, not early out of fear. Say no to unpaid overtime, to unrealistic deadlines, to people who benefit from your silence. Real freedom isn't always about escaping. It's about changing how you show up, even inside the system. Stop pretending to love what's slowly destroying you. Stop smiling through disrespect just to seem agreeable. This system survives on your exhaustion, your obedience, and your silence. But when you stop clapping for your own oppression, the cracks begin to form. You stop letting your bank account define your worth. You exist so honestly, so fully, that your very presence becomes a quiet protest against the machine. That's how you know your resistance is working. And if you're feeling afraid right now, good. That fear is part of their business model, the fear of losing your job, fear of being broke, fear of disappointing your parents, fear of not making it. But the reality is this: fear doesn't dissolve before you act, dissolves because you act. Because you moved, because you dared to step towards something real. Because yes, freedom isn't free. Liberation isn't waiting on the other side of fear. It begins the moment you walk through it. Like this, to help this message reach someone else. Tell me in the comments, what does freedom look like to you? What part hit hardest? It costs certainty. It costs the illusion of safety. But in return, it gives you everything: your time, your truth, your life, and that ... is worth every single struggle. Yes, freedom is scary, it's wild and unpredictable. But staying stuck in a life that drains you, numbs you, and breaks you a little more each day, that's worse. So ask yourself honestly, if no one was watching, no one was judging, and nothing was expected of you, forget the mansion, the title, the productivity porn. Maybe success is waking up slowly. Maybe it's spending your time on things that make your eyes light up and your heart beat faster. They sold you a dream that doesn't fit your soul. You're allowed to stop chasing it. You're allowed to change direction. Your values don't have to generate profit to be real. So you rebuild not from fear or pressure, but from truth. You stop chasing roles. You find income that doesn't destroy your health. You find people who love your essence, not your output. You remember that your life is not a brand strategy. It's a handmade creation, and you get to shape it. And no, you don't have to disappear to find freedom. You still pay rent. You still go to meetings. But your soul is no longer for sale. You stop letting your job define your identity. Because here's the final truth. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to debate your worth. You just need to live so freely, so unapologetically, that your freedom becomes undeniable. And when others see you walking differently, slower, softer, freer, they'll ask where the path is. That's when you'll realize your freedom didn't just save you, it gave someone else permission to begin. It costs comfort. This spoke to you. Don't just scroll past. Subscribe so you don't forget what you just remembered. And where are you still waiting for permission? Your voice matters more than you were taught. And when we speak together, the illusion of control begins to crack. Stay awake. Stay honest. Stay immune to chaos.